Good afternoon, and welcome to Your Health is Wealth. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Katz, alongside my two co-hosts, Dr. Loreena Ryder and Dr. Hannah Lindsay. We're here each week to help navigate your journey to wellness, but we like to do it simply without all of that horrible, boring, confusing medical terminology that nobody understands or enjoys. We are here to provide practical solutions to your health issues to allow your body's healing systems to do the work for you. It's simple, it's natural, and it works. If you're still struggling with your health, come see us at Naturopathic Physicians Group to help get your life back.
Dr. Ryder here to let you know what we're talking about today. We are talking about the MTHFR genetic mutation. You may have heard of it, and we're going to try to be very careful not to say bad words on here because it sounds like that. But
you'll try to be careful.
Yeah.
I just do it.
Cats might not. MTHFR stands for Methylenetetrahydrofolate Reductase. That is why we will call it MTHFR.
Motherfucker.
Yes.
Or just MTHFR to be safe.
Motherfucker.
So the MTHFR is an enzyme. It's a protein basically that's a worker. It helps your body break down folate. Folate is also called folic acid or vitamin B9. And it breaks this down and uses it in chemical reactions. The MTHFR gene contains instructions for making that enzyme. And that's important for breaking down and using all of that, the folate.
So why would we choose like a genetic mutation to do a show?
Because 60% of the population has this genetic mutation.
That's a lot of people. And most of them do not know they have it.
Mm-hmm. And
I think also, not only is it more common than most people realize, but it's also becoming kind of a trendy topic. I'm hearing it more and more. Patients are bringing it up. I'm hearing it on podcasts. So I think it's important to, be educated. What is this and how could it affect you?
Yeah. MTHFR also helps our cells recycle homocysteine. That's a chemical in the blood that turns into methionine, which is a building block for proteins. And you'll find out as we talk about this more and more throughout the show how important both of those things are.
So when we're talking about the actual genetic mutation of MTHFR, there are two common naturally occurring variants in the MTHFR gene. So bear with us as we get a little, sciencey here. But the two variants, one of them is called C677T and the other one is A1298C. So when the MTHFR gene has either of these two variants, the resulting enzyme that's produced becomes slightly less active. So if you think about it, if this enzyme's less active, this is going to lead to decreased levels of folate as well as increased levels of homocysteine in the blood because you're unable to recycle that homocysteine into the methionine. So like Dr. Ryder mentioned, 60% of the population is born with one or two mutations of the MTHFR gene.
And with homocysteine levels, a lot of people don't realize that if your levels are elevated, your blood vessels, your arteries, they tighten up. They get inflamed. And when that happens, you start to damage the lining in your arteries, which then can increase cardiovascular disease, plaque formation, a lot of things that are associated with heart attacks and strokes. So it's a big deal. And if you do have this genetic mutation, which like we said earlier, 60% of the population has it, and probably 90% of that population doesn't know they have it, it could be part of the reason why you have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease.
And because it's genetic, you're born with it. It's not something that you develop over time. Now, there is some speculation that through time and because of the endocrine disrupting hormones, the endocrine disrupting compounds just because our earth is polluted, may have contributed to that genetic mutation through time. But that's not anything that's proven. That's just a theory.
So this genetic mutation will affect the ability to process certain molecules in the body, specifically B vitamins. So keep in mind, you can have a mild or a prominent MTHFR mutation. It's going to depend on how many parts of the gene are affected. So do you only have one of the variants? Do you have both? If you're heterozygous, that's going to mean that only one gene is affected. If you're homozygous, that means multiple of the MTHFR genes are affected. So if you have more genes affected, then obviously there's going to be more symptoms that are associated with this mutation.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of diseases, conditions that are linked to this genetic mutation. So again, it's not just, hey, you're not absorbing your B vitamins. Okay, so fix it. No, if you don't absorb all of those B vitamins, it leads to a lot of conditions out there. So another reason why people don't know they have this is because in today's modern science, all they care about is the symptom. So if you have cardiovascular disease or you have, insomnia, they might be caused by this gene mutation, but they're just so quick to give you a pill for your blood pressure, for your cholesterol, for your swelling. So you never get this tested. And so you could go your entire life and never know it. And it's an easy test to test for. But yet most people will never have this test done in their life, and it could make a huge difference when it comes to their health.
Do we want to list all of these? Are a lot of associated diseases, and it's not even scientifically proven.
No, again, it's kind of like associated diseases with B vitamin deficiencies. So, I mean, it's linked to lots of conditions such, like neurological conditions, because you need B vitamins in order to produce the brain chemistry, the neurotransmitters. So anything associated with neurotransmitter issues, depression, anxiety, ADHD, addiction, and all of those things can be associated with this genetic mutation.
The reality is this is a root cause condition. So we talk a lot about treating the root cause, like Dr. Katz mentioned. If you have a cardiovascular disease, are you just treating, are you just mitigating inflammation in the cardiovascular system? Are you trying to get to the root cause of what's causing the inflammation in the first place? Now, MTHFR isn't always going to be the answer to that. Of course, there's a lot of other root cause factors that we're always going to consider, but MTHFR is a really great thing to look at if you feel like there's a piece of the puzzle that you're missing. So a lot of patients, maybe we've done some root cause work, we've reestablished foundations to health, and we're just not seeing them get to where we want them to go. MTHFR is something we might want to investigate a little further.
Yeah, so let's just leave that list. And that is such a long list of diseases. So what is methylation and why do we care anyway? Methylation is a chemical reaction that occurs in the body to move the detox pathway along. That's important. A chemical modification of DNA and other molecules that may be retained as cells, which divide to make more cells, is also part of the methylation. The methylation process helps our bodies make neurotransmitters, and those are things such as serotonin, dopamine, adrenaline, norepinephrine, and melatonin. Those are very important. And then methylation is involved in DNA biological processes such as gene expression, development, and differentiation, which is obviously very important.
And so when we said serotonin, well, that's your calming neurotransmitter. So that one's linked to calming people's anxiety. It helps with depression. Dopamine is that pleasure sense. So you need it you need it to produce energy, so this mutation can cause fatigue. If you don't make enough melatonin, you have insomnia. So again, all of these very common conditions that people have can be linked to this genetic mutation. So if you have it, it's not saying you have to. If you have these symptoms, doesn't mean you have this mutation, but don't just take a pill and be done with it.
Yeah, so clearly if you're unable to methylate, then you're going to have a lot of effects on a few different systems. So thank you for tuning in to Your Health is Wealth. We are the doctors from Naturopathic Physicians Group. We'll continue talking about the MTHFR mutation.
I do a segment called What Isn't Your Doctor Telling You? And this is not an anti-doctor segment, but most of the time you don't get any of your questions answered. And if you do get them, it's after you've been referred to multiple people afterward, gone through about 14 tests, paid thousands of dollars, and now you got answers for a couple of minutes. Today I'm going to talk about this genetic mutation, MTHFR, and whether or not you're able to break down your food. Why can foods make you sick even if it's not an allergy? Now, we all know sugar is bad, but I'm saying we talk about this every single week. We say, or most weeks, you should test your foods and find out what foods cause allergies or sensitivities in your body because so much inflammation is produced by that. But what if you don't feel good, do the test, and you don't feel good with certain foods and they didn't come back positive on the test? What could it possibly be? Well, this genetic mutation could be part of the reason why you react to foods and aren't allergic or sensitive to it. Because fortified foods, we've all seen these on packages. When you buy stuff that's been pasteurized, so any kind of dairy product, even though we tell you never do dairy, gluten, bread products, all of this stuff is pasteurized. And so when they pasteurize certain things, especially processed foods, they fortify these foods. By law, they have to put the nutrients back into the food that got depleted when it was pasteurized. And the most common food or the nutrients that get depleted are B vitamins and folic acid. However, when they put those vitamins back into your foods, they put the crappiest form they possibly can. And if you have a methylation problem like the MTHFR or the MTHFR, if you have this problem, you won't be able to eat fortified foods without feeling crappy.
Basically, what's happening is folic acid is typically the form that they're putting in. If you look at a nutrient label, they'll say folate and they'll have a certain amount, typically micrograms. And then in parentheses, it will say, however many micrograms, let's say 100 micrograms folic acid. So if your body's unable to methylate that folate and use it, then having the unmethylated form in your system, you're going to respond negatively to that. And you're going to have symptoms that might pop up. And that can look different for just about everyone. So you have to be really mindful if there is folic acid. This could even be in supplements that you're taking. If you're taking, low quality supplements, which unfortunately there's a lot of low quality supplements out there. So you just have to be really mindful of the types of nutrients you're taking, especially that folic acid.
Now, when it comes to traditional testing in a general medical office, there's the MTHFR test itself that could be tested. However, it's typically not ordered not even typically, it is never ordered during a routine annual lab. That is something that I don't know a primary care doctor would even order. They might refer you out to a specialist to take a look. It's not like a genetic doctor for that. But there are some associated labs like the folate, B12, MMA, and homocysteine probably aren't run either, but the folate and the 12 may be tested on yearly blood labs. However, it is kind of rare for a general practitioner to put that on the panel as part of your routine labs.
And those other labs, they're not going to tell you whether you have the MTHFR mutation. You would have to do the actual genetic testing to see that. However, there could be some indications. It can affect the folate and B12 levels. And then the homocysteine tends to be elevated if you have a variant of the MTHFR gene.
Which, unfortunately, they don't run on the test that often. So it's like, when we run tests in our office, when we do our annuals, we put these in every single time. Because we believe it is essential because we're trying to treat the root cause again. And unfortunately, most of the time, the insurance, they rarely want to cover some of these things unless you can justify it. But in order to justify it, you have to test it to prove it was needed. So it's kind of like a revolving stupid door.
Unfortunately, also in terms of, conventional treatments, there's really no treatments given for MTHFR genetic mutation in the conventional world. Primary care doctor might recommend increasing your folate and vitamin B12 intake, either through fortified foods or supplementation.
But as you said, on conventional side, they're like, go eat more fortified foods. But I just said, when I did my What Isn't Your Doctor Telling You, the fortified foods are likely not going to break down very well in your system. They might make you feel like crap. So the doctor then just told you, go increase this thing that's going to continue to make you feel like crap. Don't do that. Just don't.
A lot of times in the conventional world, there's a bit of a lack of nutrition training. And so in their mind, you just need
a bit.
I'm trying to be a little nice. I think things are changing. I think instead of just one nutrition class, maybe they have 2 or 3 now in conventional medical schools. But I think
that wasn't what I was told.
depending on the school.
Okay.
It's getting a little better.
Yeah, like there's the class. A B vitamin is this.
Well, that's the issue.
Vitamin C is good.
They see
True or
folate.
false?
They see folate as all the same, right? So folic acid, methylfolate, methylenetetrahydrofolate, all these things, they see it as the same. They're like, oh, this is just B9. You need to increase B9. Whereas, as naturopathic physicians, we have a lot more extensive training in nutrition. We know that the different types of folate, it makes a huge difference.
You need vitamin D. True or false?
Go get sun.
Go get sun. True or false? Sun bad.
I don't know. Those tests sound
They don't know a lot. They don't know a lot about the MTHFR.
Yeah. Let me try my very best here to explain the methylation pathway, which can be very confusing. So the methylation cycle is a biochemical pathway that manages or contributes to a wide range of our biochemical functions, such as detox, supporting DNA, which means turning our genes on and off, giving us energy, reducing inflammation, making those neurotransmitters like the serotonin, homocysteine metabolism, protein methylation, phase 2 liver detox. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on. But inadequate methylation capacity can lead to birth defects, depression, cognitive decline, and cancer. And impaired methylation has even been associated with autism. Now, this is all just associated. I want to stress that it's not scientifically proven. Support of methylation markers has been associated with the rapid return of speech, improvement, and behavior in ADD and ADHD spectrum. So just getting that methylation pathway moving can significantly improve someone's behavior.
And if you understand the science behind it, it's not even that complicated to understand why. Like, you need B vitamins for dopamine, and dopamine is needed for focus and memory. So dopamine, like ADHD drugs that they use for focus, are all based on the dopamine side. So if you improve dopamine function, naturally you can improve the brain fog, and you need the B vitamins for that. So again, it's not all, we know scientific proven because we see this all the time and we take care of it. But they don't like to put scientific dollars into things that take away money from big pharma. So they don't put a lot of money in studies that are really important.
Yeah, it's true.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note the reason this is often associated with childhood conditions, whether be ADHD, ADD, autism spectrum, things that we're seeing present pretty early on in life. Folic acid, folate, is very important for pregnancy and neuronal development in the fetus. And so if you're, as a mother, if you have an MTHFR variant, either one or both, and you're taking folic acid, you're not getting the methylated form of folate. You're unable to methylate it yourself. You're not able to utilize it the way that you need to in pregnancy. And so a lot of times this is going to affect the way that your child is developing. And if you're not, as the mother, getting the proper amount of methylated folate, then your child growing inside of you is also not going to be getting that.
So we're using this word methylated and methylation, methyl. The thing to understand about this word is that it's a protein. It's a piece of the puzzle of the detox pathway. So if our bodies are breaking down and using B9 or B12, there are little proteins called methyl that is in that process. And so I just wanted to explain that. I don't know if maybe...
Yeah, the easiest way to understand is a methylation breakdown. We can use that term even more so, but breaking things down, if your body can't break it down, you're going to have issues. And the issues associated, again, every condition that B vitamins and folic acid are needed for are linked to it. Mm-hmm. So cardio, again, brain health, significantly, immune health, energy, chronic fatigue is one of the main symptoms associated with this mutation.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about supplements later on, but you can actually take a supplement that supplies those methyl portions of the detox pathway. So that can be very helpful for some people who have the MTHFR genetic mutation.
Today, we are talking all about the MTHFR genetic mutation.
Dr. Ryder here with your tip of the week. So let's talk about if you feel worse when you take B vitamins. Most people rave about how great they feel when they take B vitamins. But if you're one of those people who feels worse, when taking a B vitamin supplement or getting a vitamin IV infusion that might have Bs in it, you might have the MTHFR genetic mutation. Not all B vitamins are affected by the MTHFR gene, though. The Bs that can be affected by this genetic variation are vitamins B6, B12, and folate. However, B1, B2, B3, B5, and B7 are not affected by the MTHFR variations. Most people do get adequate B6 from their diet. However, if you have the MTHFR genetic mutation, your body will have trouble converting B6 to its active form, which is P5P, and you can take that in supplement form. Many individuals, though, do not get enough folate or B12 in their diets. I think it was up to 30% of females do not get enough folate. The MTHFR controls methylation, which is that process of regulating the gene expression, neurotransmitters, metabolism of nutrients that we talked about. And so this also includes the methylation process for that folate and B12.
So what does testing look like in our world, in the naturopathic medical world for the MTHFR? Our world. It's our world. Welcome to it. So the MTHFR blood test, this could actually either be blood or saliva since it is a genetic test. This is how you're actually going to test the genetic variants. So we mentioned those two variants at the beginning of the show. You can see if you're heterozygous or if you're homozygous. So if you have one or two of those genetic variants. So this is going to be the main test to let us know, is this what's affecting your symptoms, affecting your conditions, or is this something that we're going to rule out?
Yeah, other tests that are really important. The homocysteine test, we talked about this earlier. Homocysteine is oftentimes associated with B12 and folic acid deficiency. Could also be B6 like we talked about. But remember, it damages when it's elevated, it damages the lining of those arteries. It increases clot formation, plaque buildup, etc. So really important one to check if you are elevated. And it's kind of... they say normal is under 15, but really you should be under 10 on your marker. You don't want to be too close. It's kind of like when they say, okay, you have blood sugar issues at 101, so 99 is perfect. No, you want to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room on that. So homocysteine is a really important one to test on your annual blood work every single year.
So what causes homocysteine to be too high? Well, like we said, lack of B vitamins, in particular that folate, B12, and B6. This isn't going to be the only thing that causes homocysteine to be elevated. If there's other things causing inflammation in the cardiovascular system, whether that be high cholesterol, high triglycerides, poor diet, lack of exercise, there's other things that can cause this to be elevated. But if you're seeing homocysteine be elevated on multiple lab reports and your lipid panel is beautiful, your lifestyle and diet are clean, then maybe we need to look at that folate and B12 potential deficiency.
And this homocysteine marker is almost kind of a cheater way to find out if MTHFR is an issue for you. It's cheaper than the MTHFR blood test, and ultimately you might not even have to go get the genetic test done if you suspect it, if you have high homocysteine regularly. I know that 23andMe, the genetic saliva test, used to test for MTHFR genetic mutations. I don't believe they do this anymore, but if you are interested in doing that, it was like a $99 test. I would double check though before you purchase it and ask them if that is something that they include. So let's talk about testing for folate, also known as B9. So low folate levels can negatively impact the development of a fetus, leading to birth defects, as well as our red blood cells leading to anemia. So folate is definitely something that you want to check at least once a year. Low folate can lead to nerve damage, high homocysteine levels, and like I mentioned before, there's so many deficient women in folate. Up to 23% of women do not meet their folate intake demands, and then they have low serum folate levels.
And we never tell you which ones to take, or we never tell you to stop taking anything either. But a lot of the vitamins out there are not high enough in doses to give you enough in your body. So absorption plays such a big role. So if you have this methylation issue, you're already not absorbing as much. So if you're just taking the bottle and it's at a minimum level, you're getting nothing. And then again, if you're pregnant, like we were talking earlier, if you're pregnant, that if you're not getting enough for you, you're certainly not getting enough for the baby.
And that MTHFR genetic mutation reduces our body's ability to break down that folate, which if you have that mutation and you are taking folate or eating it, your levels are just going to be low due to the inability to break it down and use it.
Another test that you could get done is MMA. This is methylmalonic acid. This is a substance that's created by our bodies when we digest proteins. So the amount of MMA in our body is determined by the amount of B12 we have. So if you have low B12, you're actually going to have high levels of MMA. So if you test the MMA and your levels are high, this could indicate a B12 deficiency, either early or mild. So some people might ask, why not just test B12? Well, we definitely can, but research shows that high levels of MMA and homocysteine together are a better indicator of low B12 than the serum B12 by itself.
And of course, you can test B12 as well. As again, it does play a role when it comes to making red blood cells, metabolism, nerve function, etc. So the FR genetic mutation is definitely associated with B12.
Also, you can test high sensitivity C-reactive protein. It's also known as HSCRP. It's a marker of inflammation that predicts incidents such as myocardial infarction, stroke, peripheral artery disease, sudden cardiac death among healthy individuals with no history of cardiovascular disease. So why did we throw this in there? Well, research does show that there is a small connection between high sensitivity CRP and DNA methylation. That's pretty much why we put that in there.
Another specialty test you could get checked is THF. Now, this is the metabolically active form of folate. It's tetrahydrofolate. This is formed from folate in two successive NADPH-dependent reductions, both catalyzed by the same enzyme, which is dihydrofolate reductase. So basically, this is the metabolically active form of folate, so you can see the level of that in your body. If that's deficient, then that could indicate MTHFR mutation.
There's also the FIGLU test for miminoglutamate. This is just pretty much a FIGLU. It's a functional marker of folate need of the body.
You can also test your amino acids. Amino acids are broken down from proteins, and they help make all the neurotransmitters in our brain. They help with muscles. And if you're having an issue with methylation, it's very possible that you're also very low in your amino acids. So also very important for whole body health.
You can also test your precursor to homocysteine. It's called S-adenosyl homocysteine. It's amino acid derivative of the activated methyl cycle and the cysteine process, like it's just being made. So that precursor might be a good idea to check as well.
And even though these are all a bunch of different tests, we don't run every single one of these tests. We're not here to scare us. It's more just saying that there's a lot of research on how to try and figure out if you have this. Most of the time when you just run the genetic markers, you run your folate, your B12, and a couple other things, and you can do it on your annual panel. If it comes back positive one time, you don't have to rerun it every single year, all these other things too. We just do our standard running. We try to figure out if this is a cause, and once we figure that out, we move forward and we know how to treat you.
Mm-hmm. One more test that might be affected is going to be your estrogen metabolites. Now, we can see this with a urine hormone test. Ultimately, if you have a difficult time methylating, you can also evaluate the ability to methylate your estrogens. So this could change those metabolites in your urine.
So why do we want to know about that? Because you want to make sure that you can break down your estrogen to like several different estrogens. And some of them are okay and some of them are inflammatory. So you just want to make sure that you're not breaking those down to the bad estrogens, because that leads to diseases and cancers and so on and so forth that we just don't want to deal with.
So let's say you have the MTHFR mutation. How do you overcome this? So what are your treatment options? Well, there's a few things you can do. One of the main ways that we're going to kind of mitigate the side effects of MTHFR are going to be supplementing with pre-methylated B vitamins. So we've kind of alluded to this a couple times, how the types of folate, for example, you take are important. If you take pre-methylated folate, then you're going to already have it methylated. You don't have to worry about the fact that your body might not be able to methylate it itself. So this can make a huge difference because it can kind of correct those deficiencies.
you want to eat non-fortified B vitamin rich foods. So, I mean, leafy greens are a huge one for that. And again, I stress non-fortified because, again, on the conventional side, they love to tell you to eat fortified foods. Go eat your grains, go eat your dairy, and then you're sick. Don't do that. But basically, your non-fortified, rich vitamin B foods.
Mm-hmm. You want to flush out your toxins safely. How do you do that? Drink plenty of water. We say this a lot. So what is your adequate amount of water intake? Take your ideal body weight, divide it in half, and that should be the amount of ounces in water you drink at a minimum per day.
You also can reduce your toxic burden. So MTHFR mutation is going to affect your detox pathways. So you want to do everything you can to support detox in your body. You can take methylation support to support detox, but reducing the toxic burden as well as drinking lots of water, flushing out toxins, supporting detox pathways, all of that can make a big difference.
There's a really great website, and I do like to promote this website because they do a lot of great charitable work that will help you find out how to reduce your toxic burden and what actually your toxic burden is coming from. But it's the Environmental Working Group's website, ewg.org. They're the group that actually comes up with they test for the clean 15 and the dirty dozen foods. They'll also have information on there about like clean fish and environment ideas to clean up your inside of your home and that type of thing.
And when it comes to natural treatments, again, it's a genetic condition. So it's not like we're going to wave a wand and your genetic condition is gone. That'd be badass, but that's not true. But if you need to absorb better nutrients, you have to make sure your digestive problems are taken care of. So if you have leaky gut or IBS or any other condition associated with GI health, chronic acid reflux, you're not going to be able to absorb anything. And if you have this mutation, it's going to be even worse. So again, we talked about food panel almost every single week. You can find the reason why you have IBS, why you have acid reflux pretty simply oftentimes, without having to take a bunch of pills.
High levels of stress can make MTHFR mutation symptoms even worse. So managing your stress, whether that be with supplementation, utilizing stress relievers, exercise, a lot of different ways to manage your stress, but just reducing any type of anxiety or depression can help lighten the load of those symptoms associated with the MTHFR mutation.
You want to make sure that you're treating your digestive problems, including leaky gut and IBS, and the doctors at Naturopathic Physicians Group are really great at helping you treat this. Yeah, you're welcome. But what you can do at home basically is just like Dr. Katz said, sugar is bad. That's inflammatory. Intake of inflammatory foods will make this worse. But you also want to eat probiotic foods, consuming gut-friendly foods, and only consume healthy fats, not those trans fats. We have a really great episode on fats. Just go and listen to that if you're confused about which are healthy fats and which are unhealthy fats.
Make sure that, if you're not sleeping well, it's really important too, because your body heals when you're sleeping. Your body does a lot of digesting when you're sleeping. So if you have issues associated with autoimmune or any kind of pain issues that is affecting your sleep, that will also make all of the conditions with this genetic mutation worse.
With MTHFR mutation, it's really important to protect your heart health. So we've mentioned homocysteine quite a few times. These levels tend to rise with age. Obviously, if you have an MTHFR mutation, they're going to be much more likely to rise. They're going to be higher. But also they can elevate with smoking, use of certain drugs. So you really want to take care of yourself as you get older and limit the use of harmful substances. Do other things to help protect the health of your cardiovascular system, because you might be at a little bit of a higher risk if that homocysteine remains elevated.
And you want to make sure you're boosting your detoxification. So we said drinking plenty of water helps detox. Sleeping is part of detoxing, so making sure you're getting plenty of sleep, like we said, and also pooping. Pooping is a way of detoxing. So you want to make sure that you are having healthy bowel movements, you're having them regularly, as in daily, and that they're not hard and painful and all of that.
So ask yourself, are you a motherfer or not? I don't know if that
go ahead and
comes
ask
out the
yourself.
same. Ask yourself that. And if you have any of these associated conditions, it might be worth checking out. But there's a lot of foods out there that, again, can help you because they're giving you natural B12 and folate and other B vitamins. So, again, we talked about leafy greens as a huge one. If you're not sensitive to them, eggs, organic, omega-3 rich, better quality eggs can be a really good source of B vitamins that your body can absorb.
Also, beets. We talked about green leafy vegetables earlier, but beets, bananas, papayas, which that'd be tough for me. I don't like how they taste, but they're really great for MTHFR mutations.
Citrus, nuts and seeds, beef liver as well, and broccoli are a few more foods that can get you the natural source of those B vitamins.
Let's talk about some supplements to take. You can actually take, or did you guys have more foods to add?
Well, we always want to tell you, we're not telling you to go buy a bunch of supplements and take a bunch of things. We're also not telling you to stop anything. Talk with your doctor. And again, if you don't have a good one, we do know some good ones at Naturopathic Physicians Group. But in general, though, again, discuss everything with your primary care before you go buy. When you go to the shelves and you go in the supplement aisle and you look up B vitamins, just like we say many times, there's hundreds of B vitamins out there, from individualized B1, B2, B3, etc., to B complexes. They're in sleeping stuff, they're in cardio stuff, they're all over the place. So it can be pretty confusing out there which one's going to be the right form to take. So again, discuss everything with your practitioner before purchasing anything.
And while you're doing that, you might also want to ask your primary care doctor if any of your medications that you're taking will decrease folate levels, because some of them actually can. Speaking of that, let's move on to supplements then. Some that we know have helped with MTHFR is methylfolate. So this is a methylated version of folate, and it will say anything that's methylated will have that word methyl in front of it. That's how you know it's pre-methylated. This is needed because the MTHFR genetic mutation has decreased that bioavailable amount of methyl donors in the chemical pathway.
So this might confuse you based off everything we've been saying, but this is why it's important to work with a practitioner, because everyone is so different. Occasionally, we might consider supplementing folic acid. If the patient has tried all other avenues to increase their folate and B12, as well as decrease their homocysteine, but nothing's working, they might need to try a high dose of the synthetic folic acid for a few months to see if that's able to bring that level up, the level of the folate up, and the homocysteine back down.
I've had to do this a time or two, and it's really funny because we don't carry this in our office because it's synthetic and it confuses everybody. But once in a while, it has to be done.
And then there's a major methylator out there known as SAMe, or S-adenosylmethionine, but we like to call it SAMe. This is a chemical reaction. These chemical reactions that occur that we need to metabolize folate, B12, and homocysteine use methyl compounds to complete that reaction. SAMe is a supplement that helps bring those methyl donors to the area so you can absorb those nutrients. And SAMe, I've had that where I've had people that can't take the Bs even when we try to give them the methylated form and they don't do well with it. But then I give them SAMe and they start feeling better. So sometimes they just need those donors. They don't necessarily need the actual vitamins. And so it's nice to have a lot of tools in your toolbox because you can make people feel better.
There's also P5P, which is pyridoxine 5-phosphate. This is B6 in its converted form. Remember that MTHFR disrupts that conversion from B6 to its active form. So you can actually take this supplement. It's already been converted.
So thanks again for joining us today on Your Health is Wealth.